Good afternoon to those who are joining. I am Virginia Moody Rudder, and I am the Manager of Community Relations here at Clean Energy Economy Minnesota. And I'd like to welcome you to Clean Energy Economy Minnesota, or CEEM's Clean Energy Virtual Roadshow, highlighting projects in West Central Minnesota. First, I'd like to give a big thank you to our sponsors. We have All Energy Solar as our lead sponsor, True North Solar, Larkin Hoffman, and Evergreen Energy as well. And I'd like to give a big thank you also to our partner organizations who have shared out today's event. So the Department of Employment and Economic Development Association of Minnesota, Clean Energy Resource Teams, and CURE Minnesota as well. On today's webinar, everyone is muted, but you are able to put questions to our panel in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you have any questions on how that works, you can also chat with the organizers. If you use the drop down kind of in the middle of your screen, you can view active cameras, and that will help kind of clear up your view. And then we're recording today's webinar. We'll share both the full video as well as a highlight video and a recap blog on our website. And then I'd really love feedback. This is our third in our Roadshow series, and I have 2 more coming up. So any feedback you have on the presentation would be much appreciated. So I am going to do a quick introduction on CEEM, and then I'll walk through some broad Minnesota clean energy trends, both on our electricity generation and jobs. And then I'm going to have our panel speak on their clean energy projects. We'll start with a small scale wind and solar project on a farm with Jim Falk of Falk Seeds. Then we'll talk through a large energy efficiency project with Bob French of 75F. And lastly, we'll have Eric Pasi of Impact Power Solutions talking about a community solar project in St. Joseph, Minnesota. At the end, we'll have a panel discussion. And again, if you have any questions for our panel, feel free to drop those in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Clean Energy Economy Minnesota brings the business voice for clean energy to policymakers and broad audiences across the state of Minnesota, highlighting the economic potential and impact that our clean energy businesses are having in our state. And we are a small but mighty nonprofit. You can see our small team of 4 here, but we recently added 1 more. And we are a business or industry-led nonprofit. These are our member organizations. And we have more than 40 members, ranging from very small companies up to Fortune 100 and 500 organizations. And I'd like to give a brief run through on clean energy in Minnesota. And we're going to start with our first annual report, the Minnesota Energy Fact Sheet.
The 2021 Minnesota Energy Fact Sheet shows the state is undergoing a dramatic clean energy transition, setting new milestones in clean energy deployment and a commitment to energy efficiency. In 2020, and for the first time, renewables were the leading source of electricity generation in Minnesota. A key factor for this can be attributed to the creation of 588 megawatts of new capacity, all from clean, renewable energy sources. Ranking first in the Midwest for energy efficiency in 2020, the state's energy productivity has grown 24% since 2011. And Minnesota's power sector emissions have fallen 40% over the last decade. In that time, natural gas used for electricity tripled, while coal use fell by half. Prior to the pandemic, nearly 62,000 Minnesotans worked in clean energy. Those jobs were growing 2.5 times faster than the rest of the economy. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, over 9,000 clean energy workers lost their jobs. Clean energy can help Minnesota's economy get back in business. Get the facts about Minnesota's energy and where it is heading. Download the 2021 Minnesota Energy Fact Sheet today.
So this Minnesota Energy Fact Sheet covers our generation profile for the state of Minnesota. And these are some of my favorite facts from our last year. First, that the renewable energy generated in Minnesota was, for the very first time, the majority of our electricity in the state. So the largest aspect. Is the number one source. And then if you add carbon-free electricity, so nuclear, then you get to the majority of capacity. And we've been cleaning up our sector over the last decades. Power sector emissions have fallen 40%. And our big companies here in Minnesota, from Target to Cargill, 3M, and General Mills, they're all making big investments in renewable energy because it just is a smart business decision. We also are a leader in the Midwest on energy efficiency, and we'll see later that that's a large sector here in Minnesota. Last year, we only added renewable energy, new power generation in Minnesota. And part of the reason for this is that wind is now the cheapest form of new electricity, cheaper than natural gas. So that's an exciting moment. We're also seeing a lot of adoption of electric vehicles. So over the last decade, that's increased by nearly 6 times. So we're seeing more interest in those, whether it's total EV or a plug-in hybrid. And that's changing how we use electricity in our state. We also set out a Clean Jobs Midwest report every year. And we've done this for now going on 6 or 7 years. So looking at these trends, I think, is an important economic indicator. And unfortunately, last year, just as so many sectors, we lost jobs in clean energy. It was our first year in all of our years of doing this report that we did have a year-over-year decline. So we went from, as the video had said, 62,000 jobs to around 55,300 jobs. In positive news, these jobs are coming back at a faster rate. So we heard in the video that prior to the pandemic, our jobs were growing faster than the general economy. And this is still true. So we're seeing the rebound faster on the clean energy side. And these jobs are scattered across the state, somewhat proportional to population. So we see about 40% of these jobs in greater Minnesota, 60% kind of in the Twin Cities metro area. And small businesses are really driving this clean energy sector. So 71% of these jobs are found in businesses with 20 or fewer employees. The bulk of our clean energy jobs are found in energy efficiency. And these range from energy efficient lighting to HVAC and building controls. You'll hear from our member company, 75F. So 3/4 of our jobs in Minnesota are on this energy efficiency side. But we do also have a lot of jobs in that renewable energy generation, and wind. The wind industry subsector grew 8% last year. So there's about 2,500 jobs in wind in Minnesota and about double that in solar. And we have more clean energy workers than the number of lawyers, accountants, and auditors, web developers, and real estate agents combined. It's kind of a fun fact. So I think it's an important and growing industry. And as I said, these jobs are scattered across our states. You can see here in kind of this west central area of Minnesota that we're highlighting today, looking at CD 6 and 7 and 8, kind of that nexus. There's still a lot of jobs across these districts. Now I would like to invite Jim Falk of Falk Seeds to begin his presentation on his panel or his project.
Thank you, Virginia, for inviting me to be part of your West Central Minnesota Clean Energy Virtual Roadshow and the opportunity to share my on-farm experience with on-farm renewable energy. First, I'd like to provide a little background about our family farm. I'm the 4th generation to operate the Falk Farm in Swift County, Minnesota, along with my wife, Karen, who's a true partner in our farm operation. We operate the farm with our son, Andrew, who's the 5th generation to work our land, and now his young family is the 6th generation to experience all the joys of growing up on a family farm. Falk Farm is about 1,000 acres, of which 550 are in crop production, 250 in pasture and hay meadow, and the balance is in conservation programs, wetlands, and native prairie. In addition to our farming operation, I own and operate a seed cleaning facility with my wife, Karen. We started our seed business, Falk Seed Farm, in 1985, and it's now a key part of our operation. We're a small regional seed company with the majority of our customers farming within a 150-mile radius of our business. Our seed business is quite unique in that we work with farmers who utilize the latest in high-tech genetics and traits, and also farmers that plant non-GMO and organic seed. We have connections to the Asian market for specialty soybeans. We promote crop rotations that include small grain cover crops, small grains cover crops, forage and pasture seed, and also provide seed for CRP and native prairie restoration projects. And I'm really excited to be in discussions with potentially processing new crops like Kernza, developed at the University of Minnesota. It would be safe to say we're a full service seed center for any and all seed needs. I've been interested in renewable energy for many years, and in 2005, our family formed an LLC intending to have a 17.5 megawatt wind farm established on the property we own in Swift County. We attended the annual American Wind Energy Association conferences for many years, making connections with vendors and turbine manufacturers. We participated in several project requests for renewable energy from the transmission providers in our area, hoping to be awarded a power purchase agreement, and we were. We entered in the MISO grid connection process in 2006. The process was complicated, cumbersome, and very expensive. After spending just under $100,000 and knowing that we were going to be put back again in another restudy with a group of projects, and still no guarantee that we would not be restudied again, even adding more cost to the project, we pulled out of the MISO interconnection process in 2009. We were not alone. The process was extremely flawed, in my opinion. Many small projects like ours, good projects, simply pulled out of the MISO interconnection queue because there was never any certainty that those local projects would not incur additional expenses so extensive that the project would be at risk to be viable. For our project, we had already completed the state and local permit process and were permitted for a 17.5 megawatt wind farm, but we could not get through the MISO grid connection study timely enough to sign on to the power purchase agreement that had been offered to us. So let's be clear. Whether it's a relatively large wind or solar project or a small distributed generation project, it's really hard for independent farmers to overcome all the obstacles and barriers in front of them as they try to be the owner of a renewable energy system on their land where the energy is actually being produced. So after being quite frustrated that our project was on hold for several years and still is, we wanted to do our part to offset our carbon footprint and power the majority of our seed plant's electrical needs from renewable energy produced on site. In addition to our desire to reduce our use of fossil fuels, we believe as the cost of power continued to rise, there should be some cost saving for us after the equipment is paid for. In 2016, we installed a 30 kW wind turbine to connect to our 3-phase power that's used in the seed plant. I've got some slides to share about the day we started generating our own renewable energy. So let's look at slide 1. Slide 1 is completing the turbine assembly, attaching the blades. Now we'll take a look at slide 2. Slide 2 is lifting the turbine, and this was a really fun day for the family. And slide 3 is the crew that is securing the tower. We'll take a look at slide 4. Slide 4 is releasing the crane, not an easy task. And slide 5 is when we first started generating power with the crane safely away from the tower. In 2017, we installed a 33 kW solar system on the seed plant roof that is connected to our single phase power. Let's take a look at slide 6. This is the installation of the west side of the section of panels on our warehouse roof. And now slide 7. This is the installation of the east side, the east section of panels over our loading dock. Let's go to slide 8. Slide 8 shows the project complete on the west section, and now slide 9. Slide 9 shows the project complete on the east section. There are 120 panels total. The tax credits for small wind and solar were forecast to be reduced, so we felt we needed to proceed when those credits were still available. We also knew that we could apply for a USDA REAP grant, and even though we did apply for the grant from USDA's Rural Energy for America program to help fund both projects, our applications were unsuccessful. The demand for REAP grants has historically exceeded the available funding. I believe there's an effort with the Biden administration to increase the level of funding for REAP grants, and that would be an important step forward. We did proceed with both projects because Minnesota has a net metering law, and we were able to put up these 2 renewable energy systems because we have both a 3-phase meter and in the seed plant for the motors, and also single-phase meter for all the other energy used in the seed plant. The energy consumption of the seed plant is significant due to the electrical motors needed for processing. We process seed and grain for approximately 10 months of the year, with October through May being our peak season. From 2016 through 2019, the average annual cost of power to run the seed plant was $14,332 a year. In these numbers for reference, as we had a lightning storm that damaged the turbine and we were shut down for several months in 2020. With both our wind and solar systems working, we are currently producing approximately 73.7% of the seed plant's power needs on an annual basis from the renewable energy produced on site. I had the distinct honor of testifying on July 23rd, 2020 in Colin Peterson's Ag Subcommittee on commodity exchanges, energy, and rural communities about the importance of on-farm renewable energy. On-farm renewable energy systems are vital tools for U.S. farmers and ranchers and their businesses as they work towards economic and environmental sustainability to combat climate change. My business is just one example of that. Obviously, the focus of that hearing was more specific to farmers and ranchers and the programs that were available to them. However, our discussion today encompasses a much broader audience, including homeowners and the entire business community as well. We need everyone pulling together if we're going to be able to mitigate the negative effects of climate change. My personal narrative about Falk Seed Farm shows that it's more than just personal economics in the discussion about having more renewable energy supplying our grid. People in general want to be part of the solution, but unfortunately they're discouraged by the process we have today. So we need to be realistic about how we address the policy changes needed politically and how we think big on funding the infrastructure needed to be successful. The devastating effects of erratic and extreme weather events from our changing climate has a negative economic outcome for all of us in this nation and around the world. These are complicated issues, and removing the obstacles and barriers that prevent everyday ordinary people from being able to step up and be part of the solution would be a great step forward. However, the call to action is much bigger than individuals and small businesses like mine. We need a national effort focused on transitioning to a renewable energy, transitioning to renewable energy in every aspect of our economy. Unfortunately, the energy providers that have long-term contracts with the fossil fuel industry have put up even more barriers in the last few years. Many of the electric co-ops have put a fee structure in place to offset what they claim is lost revenue if a member fails to install renewable energy. If a member installs a renewable energy system. This seems hypocritical in that a member who installs more efficient lighting or more energy efficient appliances will often get rewarded with a rebate rather than an additional charge. Let's be honest, climate change is real, the facts are not disputable, and farmers can be and want to be a big part of the solution along with the general public and progressive businesses. Producing renewable energy on site is the most efficient use of that energy. Again, this is not disputable. Local distributed generation systems work and are the most efficient use of the energy on our grid. As a farmer who has 2 renewable energy systems in place, I know the benefits long-term to my operation. It just makes good sense that farmers and ranchers, as well as homeowners and Main Street businesses are able to produce their own clean renewable energy on site without penalty from their energy provider. We can all be part of the solution by embracing the benefits of renewable energy. Thank you for allowing me to share my experience with you today.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. And now let me get Bob's presentation. All right. Thanks for bearing with me as I get my screen share back. And there we go.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk to everybody. What I'm going to do today is just give you a little bit of information about us and what we're doing, and a project that we worked on in St. Cloud for one of our customers. Next slide, please. So we are an IoT-based building management system, and you might wonder, well, what is that? I'm sure you've heard of the Internet of Things, and what we're doing is using modern technology to reinvent the way that buildings are managed. And we primarily focused on heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Next slide. So what we have done is created what we call a full stack. In other words, the complete creation of the building management system, from the sensors to the controllers, through the gateways, all the way up to the internet, to the enterprise platform. This is equivalent to what, I'm sure there's other companies like Honeywell and so on that you've heard of that have done this. This is what we've done. We felt like it was needed to be reinvented from the ground up in order to gain access to projects that in the past just haven't been accessible. The problem is that these kinds of systems have historically been very expensive. And so in order to bring energy efficiency, reducing the demand for that power to a much wider variety of buildings, we reinvented the way that they're installed. And it all starts with a suite of sensors that collect temperature and humidity around the building at the very minimum, but also other indoor air quality points like VOCs, CO2, the thermistor temperature for the supply air, light levels, sound levels, all these things that really make the big picture of what the indoor air quality is all about. Next slide. So this system is very scalable. That was the key to accessibility. We needed to be able to solve the energy consumption problems that are presented in smaller buildings that typically only have let's just call it a basic thermostat, all the way up to the larger buildings that have cooling or cooler or chiller and boiler plants, and a system that can scale in cost and complexity throughout that entire range. That's something that the traditional systems have not been able to do, and that's the reason why a good portion of commercial buildings in the United States do not have any automation. About 80% of the buildings in the United States just are of a size that the traditional building automation systems didn't make any financial sense. So we have broken through that barrier and can provide solutions all the way down to about 10,000 square feet. Next slide. So what happens is, as a result of this, we end up with much better comfort and, more importantly, efficiency. It turns out that comfort and efficiency are very much related. When a system is optimized so that the air, for example, is going to the places where it's needed the most, it turns out to be more comfortable, but even more important, energy efficient. Next slide. And this last year, of course, with COVID-19, there's a lot of things that happen. And of course, we responded to this with what we call epidemic mode, which is a way of changing the way that ventilation works to bring in a lot more outside air, which the CDC said was much more safe to bring in a lot more outside air so that the virus concentrations inside of the building would be reduced. And we created these tools so that the building owners could just turn that on at will. We also created an Iaq Sensing Kit, which is a real fast way of figuring out what is the IAQ situation in your building. If you're not sure how your ventilation is working or how healthy your air is, we have a kit that can do that. And we partnered with Great River Energy. They put together a healthy buildings program, which through a rebate process could provide perhaps a free version of an IAQ analysis in your building. Next slide. And so getting to home furniture, we have developed a solution for home furniture that is now deployed in 100% of all of their stores. That's throughout the region, in a 4-state region, including the store in St. Cloud. And we were able to reduce their overall energy costs by over 20%. And I'm not talking about 20% of their HVAC, I'm talking about 20% of their utility bill, which is something we're very proud of. If you figure that HVAC is about half of their bill, that means that we reduce the consumption of their HVAC equipment by about 40% or so, which is almost unheard of in this day and age. But with modern technology, that can be done. So, and that amounts to quite a bit of money throughout the chain, and annually, it's added up to several $100,000 so far. So I look forward to a question and answer period at the end. We use energy print to measure the difference between what their costs would have been versus what they are. Energy print is a utility dashboard that just brings up your utility bills in an easy to see way, so you can look at your costs month over month and year over year. And we use that technique to determine how much of the savings were attributed to this project that we did. So I look forward to the questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And now I would like to invite Iaq Posse of Impact Power Solutions to share his story. Let me pull up your slides, Iaq.
Thanks, Virginia. My name is Iaq Posse. I am the Chief Development Officer of Impact Power Solutions. We are a local solar development company based in the Twin Cities. And today I want to share a story about our project in St. Joseph, Minnesota, community solar project powering the area. Next slide, please. A little bit about IPS. We were founded in 1991. I have been there since 2007, so coming up on 15 years. And since then, we've become one of the fastest growing companies in the state and the country. This is a slightly older slide, but we are now a top 10 commercial solar development company in the country and have installed over 180 megawatts to date. We really focus on the commercial and industrial markets and community solar specifically. Next slide. So we do everything from identifying land and working with farmers, landowners to develop sites, finance and interconnect the interconnection process and the procurement of material for those sites, installation, and then the operations and maintenance of those projects long-term. As mentioned, community solar and commercial solar are our two largest sectors. So we do work with folks like Target Corporation, Cargill, Hormel, and others locally. We also do a lot of work with school districts, which I'll touch on in a moment, and local government entities. So this project in particular is located in St. Joseph. You can see in the background there, that's Highway 94. So right outside, just north of the St. Cloud metro area. And so if you're driving, you'll see these projects both on the west and the east side of the freeway, very visible. We worked with the landowners who collectively are IMS and Walls to develop this land. We met with the landowners and talked about the projects. We looked at the grid infrastructure in the area, which was suitable for the projects. And over the course of a 2-year period, brought what was essentially kind of farmland and then also hay fields to a higher purpose use with solar. And you can see this project and this picture in particular was taken almost 3 years ago to the day. So you can see we've got the nice fall colors. The system was just turned on right before these pictures were taken. And you'll see that the ground is still not, we haven't grown cover crop below it, but that if you were to visit the site today, would see a slightly greener area. Next slide, please. So what is community solar? Community solar offers ratepayers, residences, businesses, public entities to participate and adopt solar without necessarily having panels on their roofs. Maybe they don't want to have the panels on the roofs, or they can't if they're leasing a building, or if the structure can't support it, etc. And so we, as a development company, come in, we identify land. This particular project that you're looking at on the right-hand side is a project adjacent to the Red Wing High School. And so we leased land from them, we installed the equipment. Bill credits are created on a monthly basis based on the production of that system. And those bill credits flow to our subscribers for those projects. And in 99% of most community solar cases, the subscriber has no upfront cost to participate in these programs, but they pay back a portion of the savings that they see from the utility, and usually somewhere in the 90% range, so that there's a 10% savings roughly for participants in the program. Next slide. I mentioned Red Wing School District. In the project in St. Joseph, we have been fortunate to work with other local school districts, including St. Cloud School District, Holdingford School District, and Annandale School District, all of which are subscribing to that particular project. We also offer what's known as our Sunrise program to all school districts that are clients of ours, and even school districts that aren't clients of ours. So the systems produce an enormous amount of data. We have weather stations located at each one of our sites, as well as monitoring of the systems themselves, so that students and educators can chart real-time and historic data from the systems in a way that helps students recognize and understand how energy is created, where it's created, and how solar energy benefits them, not just from a financial standpoint, but also from a climate resiliency and grid resiliency standpoint. Next slide. So this is a group of educators that we met with. Really, it's been heartening to see on a biannual basis. We bring educators out to our sites to help them understand how to implement this lesson planning essentially into the classroom. So we've created curriculum. The gentleman on the right-hand side there, his name is Michael Cartwright. He is a science teacher with the Mounds View Public School District, which we have 13 solar projects on top of their buildings. But he took a sabbatical for a year and essentially helped us create this curriculum that we provide for free to all the districts in Minnesota that are interested in adopting clean energy lesson planning for their classrooms. One step further that has been exciting over the last year is our work with We Share Solar. We Share Solar creates solar suitcases to make lesson planning even more tangible. Students put together these kits that are then shipped to refugee camps, or I should say schools for the deaf and other disadvantaged areas in Africa. They're then installed, and then the beneficiaries of those suitcases send back really nice videos, thank you videos, essentially, for their participation in the process that helped them illuminate essentially the rural Africa. Next slide. So education is one component and one kind of ancillary benefit of these projects. This is another one. This is an apiary. Bayer Honey actually installed these apiaries next to our site, and that is actually the St. Joseph site behind him there, where we, under the solar array, have planted pollinator-friendly vegetation. It helps in a few ways. So we plant low growth crop, which is a MnDOT rated pollinator-friendly seed mix at all of our sites. It keeps vegetation low, so it doesn't overgrow over the array. And then also it provides a habitat for pollinators. So we're actually able to jar our own honey from this array. Next slide, please. Which really fun. We've been able to share this with our subscribers and other folks in the area as a secondary benefit, again, to what we do. Next slide. It's even more fun when we can use that honey to infuse into your favorite cocktails. Milk and Honey Ciders is actually located adjacent to the St. Joseph Community Solar Garden. And so we were really happy to collaborate with them, where they used the honey that was produced on site by Bayer Honey to infuse the cider that you see here. And so we've had rotating kegs of this available at our offices, and just another way to enjoy solar energy and the work that we all do. Next slide. PBS, Pioneer PBS, located in western and northern Minnesota, actually did a story, an expose on honey that's created from these solar projects around the state, and it won a regional Emmy Award, which you see here. There was a kind of a party, an Emmy party at 56 Brewing in Northeast Minneapolis, who created the solar armor crush that you see in this slide as well. And it's just kind of another weaving story that evolved out of this St. Cloud, St. Joseph Community Solar Garden that we're all at IPS very proud of being a part of. And that concludes my portion of the presentation. Looking forward to questions.
Great. Now I invite all of my panelists to come back onto camera, and we will have our Q&A portion. So again, there's a reminder at the bottom of the screen is the Q&A function. You can place your questions there. And I wanted to start by asking about motivations for these projects. So Jim, you talked about trying to do a big project, and then it ended up, because of challenges, moving small. We heard about the solar at St. Joseph, and also this energy efficiency with home furniture. So what are the motivations that you see, Bob and Eric, when you're partnering with clients, whether it's a subscriber to a solar garden or someone who's installing energy efficiency equipment? Is it a sustainability driver? Is it economic? And then Jim, maybe you can speak to your farm's motivations.
What would you like first?
How about you go?
I'm sorry?
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, a lot has changed since we started looking at our large project, and hopefully the queue system has improved. I think it still probably has its challenges, but obviously there needed to be an improvement at that point in time, because the amount of outlay of cash and the time constraints to get something in place was really a challenge. And at that point, when we decided that we weren't likely to get that project up, we decided that we would do something on our own. And so, there's so much with the technology, as you listen to the other panelists today, and the interest, there's so much more activity today than there was, well, technology advances every year. So.
Yeah, kudos to Jim on his journey. I know that it has been very difficult. When I started in solar almost 15 years ago, really the motivation was for folks that had means and ideals. And since then, we've really seen kind of a wholesale shift toward the economics. And I think it's great to have these secondary benefits. I talked about pollinator friendly, I talked about the educational component, but really what pushes and motivates our clients to move forward has been and likely will be the economics of these types of programs, where we're able to offer cash flow positive or cash flow friendly solutions versus what it was 15 years ago, where we're looking at 20-year to 25-year return on investments. It's really both the right thing to do now from obviously an environmental standpoint, but also the right thing to do from an economic standpoint.
I would say from our point of view, our motivation is to save the world by bringing these energy efficiencies to places that they haven't been able to get to before. But from our customers' motivations, it really has to do with the company size. The return on investment for the home stores, for example, is 1 year. It's incredibly fast because of the amount of energy that we're saving there and the cost of the technology. It just pays back super fast. That's not typical. That's beyond normal. Normal would be more like around 3 years. Still, from a CFOs or a financial analysis, pretty easy to do. Typically, though, the smaller companies that we're dealing with are just motivated by reducing their costs, right? Their month-to-month utility bill. When we deal with bigger companies that have a role like a chief sustainability officer, it is more sophisticated, and sustainability and carbon footprint reduction, are also goals. Although they're all aligned and going in the same direction, which is reducing the demand.
And Bob, is there something particularly unique about home furniture that allowed for that really fast payback?
Yeah, their facilities are just perfectly suited to this kind of energy efficiency. They're very large spaces with a whole bunch of rooftops, typically around 20 rooftop units. Those are those big metal boxes you see up on the roof. Those are called packaged air conditioning systems. And the way those kinds of stores are typically built before they were even there, for example, would have been you just put a thermostat on the rooftop and let it go. But the thing is, those units all blend together in a large format retail like that. So what we were able to do was group them and make them more efficient by realizing that by nature, in an uncontrolled system, one of those rooftops is almost always going to take the lead, and the other ones will follow. And what they end up doing is competing with each other sometimes. And so when you put them all into an automation system, you corral them and get them operating in a much more logical fashion with the machine learning that we do. It was pretty straightforward to bring that cost down dramatically.
Follow-up question from the audience, wondering if 75F solutions are generally installed mostly in existing and then therefore more inefficient older buildings or newer buildings.
Here in Minnesota, most of our projects are new construction now, just because this is our backyard, and we have gotten to know the design engineering community pretty well. And so, especially in outstate Minnesota, community centers, fire stations, that kind of thing are designed now with these smart controls, from the ground up. Although our energy efficiency claims come from retrofits 100%, and it's for the reason you mentioned. If the building is, say, 15 years old or older, and it still has the original control equipment inside, I pretty much guarantee that there's going to be very good savings available in buildings like that.
Great. Jim, we had a follow-up question for you from the audience about your interaction with your local utility and how that went.
Well, we actually were prepared, understanding that the co-ops in general have been, fairly resistant to wanting to add more on-farm renewable energy. And of course, after it was 4 years ago, they changed the rules basically through the legislative process so that the co-ops could, in fact, do some fee recovery and charge fees for people who put up renewable energy projects on site. We certainly, I can't complain that we didn't get this done timely. It worked, but I know of people that have just really had struggles and challenges, and I think that one would hope that we'd get past that and understand that this is part of the solution to our climate change, and it's the most efficient energy that we can produce. And so, let's get past that and let's kind of be on the same team trying to move this thing forward.
And do you think that there are good ways that those rural electric cooperatives are working? I know you sit on the board of Cure Minnesota, which has been really engaged in helping rural electric cooperative members engage with their utility and speak out.
I think from mentioning Cure, I think they rated the co-ops based on, they had a scorecard, and that was a real wake-up call for the co-ops as to, are you cooperating? Are you listening to your members? What could you do better? And so they really got some good traction with that. But, I think we're just starting to get the type of cooperation that we actually need. We're on load control in our home. And so because we have a multiple source for being able to do that. And so when the plant isn't running and I'm producing energy, then they're getting the energy back from me at a discount to what they would have to go to the market and buy it for. So there's mutual benefits here, and everybody needs to realize that. And I think the sooner that the co-ops kind of step up and realize it, they can have a lot more partners out here with individual farmers putting on farm renewable energy in place. I think it would be just really nice to have a better working relationship than has been the case in the past.
Eric, we have a question from the audience. What is needed to keep growing community solar in Minnesota? Is there more local education, better policy, subscriber awareness?
So the 2013 Solar Jobs Act enacted the state's community solar program. And since then, we've seen a dramatic amount of changes and improvements nationwide that were not originally conceptualized at that time. And so what we need to do really is modernize the program, allow for other DERs like energy storage to participate in the program, open up the market so that more residential and disadvantaged communities can participate in the program, things that weren't as emphasized back in 2013 when we originally passed that bill. So it is policy related, it's somewhat regulatory related, but it's certainly, we're at a point, I don't know if you remember what your TV or what our TVs looked like 8 years ago, but think about that on hyperdrive with solar, and that's that's the type of technology and situation that we're dealing with. So we really should modernize the program, and it starts with policy.
Another question from the audience. Can you share your perspectives on jobs and careers in this sector? So what are the workforce training needs and the opportunities?
I'll go from our perspective. We do have quite a bit of new hires that we're looking for, and these are all in the technical area, the engineers and technicians. We have to do on-job training because in terms of what we do, it's not something that's taught in schools. But we do appreciate the experience that people have with traditional building controls or traditional building systems. If they have that sort of a background, it's very helpful because we can take them, we can start those people at that level and then bring them into the modern era, the way that we do it. So we have grown quite a bit in the past year. As soon as the pandemic began to subside, we started hiring, and there are open positions even now.
Eric, you want to go next?
All right, fine. Hey, thank you, Greg, for bringing up this question. I feel like over the last year, I've been really emphasizing this. My background's changed, as you've seen. I wrote a book called Clean Wave Guide to Success in the Green Recovery, which talks about the past, present, and future of the workforce in clean energy. And it's available on Amazon. It's actually been out for about a year. And beyond that, though, what I love about the clean energy sector is that we're talking about everything from good paying trades jobs that can't be outsourced, including electricians, plumbers, HVAC folks, etc., all the way up to marketing, accounting, standard business positions that you might see, whether you're in clean energy or elsewhere. You're just doing it in a sector that's really having transformational change or in changing the trajectory of the climate crisis. So there's just so much to be optimistic about. I mean, the numbers that you were reading off Virginia in the beginning, talking about tens of thousands of jobs in Minnesota that are affected by this industry. And I'm just very excited to see what growth has in store for us here heading into the later 2020s.
Jim, did you have anything you wanted to add? I know farming is a different industry, but I think there's been a lot of conversations too about people wanting to get into that space.
Yeah, I think the question is not really related to me so much, but what I would say is the traffic we have here from the people that come to our business, and then they see the solar panels and they see the turbine, turning, and so we field a lot of questions about, does this work, and how did you do it, and how did you get into this? And I think, the point is that there's a tremendous amount of interest. The costs have come down, particularly in solar. People want to be involved in it. Obviously, that means that there could be great job growth. And then again, to reiterate, if the interconnection to a co-op or to a for-profit energy provider, let's get rid of this fee structure and make it so that it's going to be a win-win for the people installing it, the people that are using it, the feedback going in from the net metering side. That really shows that you care, that you're walking the walk and not just talking the talk, that you're friendly to renewable energy. So.
And one last question from the audience here. Jim, was there any pushback from those around you to install the wind turbine, or did your neighbors support it?
Oh, certainly they supported it. Now, we didn't need much for permitting, basically, to put that small turbine up on our property, but we are permitted for that 17.5 megawatt wind farm as well, and we cleared all that with the neighborhood. You had to do that before you could get the permits anyway. So. But the positive or the right thing to do there is to reach out and be sure that you're letting people know what you're doing.
All right, we'll do one last question to wrap up here. There is a lot of conversation at the federal level about the Build Back Better plan and the amount of investment that could bring to our clean energy industry. So Eric and Bob, I'd love for your thoughts on how we see this, how you see this impacting both your business and the broad industry in our state.
Yeah, I'll kick it off, Bob, and I'll throw it over to you. Hopefully this ages well, but we're very optimistic about the chances. I think we've all grown up in on the clean energy side in terms of lobbying and our impact on communities, both red and blue. There's a lot to be celebrated from a bipartisan angle, and I think that we will see the benefits likely are going to be muted, based on the centrist Democrats in the Senate. However, I just think that industry itself in the sector outside of this, major policy push is already on a tidal wave that doesn't need a lot of help. We're doing things because it is the least expensive option. We're making these improvements because it's popular. And corporates are leading the way. So that's my opinion of it. I think something will get done. It might not be as to the level that a lot are hoping, but I think we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I would echo what Eric is saying. The economics of energy efficiency, building efficiency speak for themselves. But the challenge that we face is that most people aren't aware of these efficiencies that can be had. And so one of the benefits of the Build Back Better program will be creating targets and making it less optional, for the energy efficiencies to be had. So that I think that'll really help us in terms of raising awareness. And that's really what we're looking for.
Great. Well, a big thank you to all of our panelists today. I loved our conversation. Thank you to our audience for the questions. And I have just a few last slides to share. We are continuing our virtual roadshow of Minnesota, highlighting projects in a couple weeks in the Twin Cities Metro, and then a week later up on Northeast Minnesota. So I encourage you to check it out there. My presentation will be the same piece, but we have new projects that we're highlighting. So I encourage you to join if you are interested. We will be hosting our legislative preview on November 9th. Looking forward to our priorities for the upcoming session and hearing from the chairs of the House and Senate Energy Committees. And then we also are hoping to have a lunch and learn on diversity, equity, and inclusion best practices in the clean energy industry and the opportunities that exist there. So again, we will send out a survey. I would love your feedback on today's event. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and thank you for your attendance today.